And now at 7, red light cameras at intersections across Florida are here to stay. The state Supreme Court rejected a challenge brought by a local man who was ticketed for running a red light in Aventura.
His argument, the ticket was given based on a third-party vendor, not law enforcement's determination that he broke the law.
Edward Guedes was the lead appellate attorney who helped secure this victory for multiple cities in this suit, and he's joining us now. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
So your case went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, which upheld the red light cameras. What were the findings of the court? Can you break it down for us? Because this was taking more than 3 years for you, right?
Right. It was about 3.5 years when the legal proceedings actually began, dating back to October of 2014. And essentially back then what happened was the 4th District Court of Appeal had concluded that Hollywood's program was unlawful, that they had unlawfully delegated authority from the city to the camera vendor. That precipitated a series of legal proceedings, including a class action, motions to dismiss everywhere. And over the course of time, we just kept litigating those proceedings, and eventually we got to yesterday's decision with the Florida Supreme Court, which basically said that what the 4th District had concluded back in October of 2014 was really not correct, and that what subsequent appellate decisions upholding the programs were correct, and essentially said that the way the cities and counties are operating programs throughout the state through the use of a vendor is entirely legal, and it's consistent with the Mark Wandel Traffic Safety Act, which was enacted by the legislature in 2010.
All right, let's talk about these cameras, because you have to admit that they are very unpopular among people in South, among drivers.
Among people who don't stop at red lights.
Yes, and opponents say they're an example of Big Brother, and that also it's a money grab by the local municipalities. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Well, there are two aspects to the red light camera programs. There are the legal issues, and then there are the social and political issues. By and large, I wasn't retained to argue about the social and political issues, but I could certainly appreciate that there is room for disagreement on a political level as to whether the programs should be in place or not. And usually the remedy for those political issues is the state legislature. And as we all know, ever since the statute was passed back in 2010, every year there's a movement to try to repeal the camera programs, and every year it has failed. And if people are opposed, they can certainly try to repeal the statute. But those motivations certainly don't address the legality of the program. And I think that's where the Florida Supreme Court was exclusively concerned.
Well, if the whole idea is safety, then I wonder how you dealt with this during the trial, because there was a study done by the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles that looked at crashes both before the red light cameras were installed and then after.
Right.
And overall, the total crashes went up over 10% after the red light cameras were installed. That included rear-end crashes, possible injury crashes. So what was your argument to the fact that, from a safety standpoint anyway, it really wasn't cutting down on car crashes?
It actually wasn't an issue at all in the case, because the validity or invalidity of the programs didn't turn upon the wisdom of the legislation. In other words, were they justified because they actually reduced accidents or not? That issue wasn't part of the legal analysis. It wasn't part of what the court considered. And I'm aware of the studies, and you can get a study very often to say pretty much anything. Right. But I think there's certainly some truth to the notion that while maybe rear-end collisions might have gone up at certain intersections, even though because red light cameras were put in, by the same token, there are studies that show that the more dangerous, the more deadly accidents, which are the T-bone accidents that people run and clip a car head, right on a T, that those have dramatically decreased, and the number of fatalities have certainly decreased. And that was the primary motivation when the legislation was passed in 2010.
What about the right to confront your accuser? I mean, that's long been an argument against red light cameras, that you can't confront an officer. It's a machine who's capturing this crime on camera.
Well, it's not so much that the machine is capturing the crime and it's not your accuser. The machine collects evidence. Police officers rely on technology every day to collect evidence in all sorts of ways. They use DNA testing to find out people. You don't confront the device that collects the DNA and makes a determination on DNA. It's a tool. And this is similarly a tool for law enforcement to use. I think, candidly, I think what people have a lot of problems with is that for many, many years, and I have to confess, we've all probably done it at one point or another, we've approached an intersection and said, I'm in a hurry, I'm going to run it. There's no cop around.
Not me, Ed. Never.
Glad to hear it.
Or me.
I'm glad to hear it. You folks get kudos.
They're angels. I work with angels here.
But there are
You're so
people
lucky.
who did that.
Yeah.
And I think what technology has done has brought us, in so many ways, improved our lives, but it has also enhanced law enforcement. And now these tools are available to law enforcement to say, you know what, we can't be at every intersection, but the cameras can.
Yeah, and they're going to be there. And so what I hear you saying is that the legality of this program has now been established by the highest court in the state of Florida, and now this is a political issue for the legislature and for local municipalities.
Absolutely, Ellen.
Ed Guedes, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks
My
for being
pleasure.
here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.